The alarms screamed through the ship like dying animals. Red lights flashed everywhere, painting the walls in blood-colored warnings. Park grabbed the control panel as the whole vessel shook violently, his knuckles turning white from the grip. "Engine 3 is gone," shouted from her station. Her voice was barely audible over the chaos. "Engine 2 is failing." His mind raced. He was the lead engineer. Everyone was looking at him. 12 lives depended on what he did in the next few minutes. The research vessel 7 was falling apart around them, and they were nowhere near home. They were nowhere near anywhere. "Find me a planet," he yelled back. "Anything with atmosphere." The botanist who had been peacefully studying samples just minutes ago was now frantically searching the navigation screens. Her hands trembled, but her eyes stayed focused. There, uncharted planet designation 4, breathable atmosphere, 15 minutes away. "We don't have 15 minutes, Lee said grimly. The former military medic was already strapping injured crew members into safety harnesses. Blood floated in small droplets around him. The artificial gravity was failing too. Made a decision. Redirect all remaining power to the front shields. We're going down hard. The next 15 minutes were the longest of his life. The ship groaned and screamed as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Fire surrounded them. The heat became unbearable. Crew members prayed. Some cried. Just kept his hands on the controls, making tiny adjustments, fighting for every second. When they finally hit the ground, it felt like the world exploded. Woke up to silence. Beautiful, terrifying silence. He was hanging upside down in his harness and everything hurt. Slowly, he freed himself and dropped to what used to be the ceiling. "Report," he called out, his voice rough. "Everyone report." One by one, voices answered. Was alive, bruised but okay. Had a cut on her forehead but was already helping others. Was doing what he did best, treating the wounded. 3 crew members had serious injuries. The rest had cuts, bruises, and probably broken bones. But everyone was alive. 12 souls had fallen from the sky, and 12 souls had survived. The ship was destroyed, not damaged, destroyed. Walked through the wreckage and felt his heart sink lower with each step. The engines were gone. The communication array was smashed. The hull had cracked in 17 places. They weren't flying anywhere ever again. "We need to go outside," said softly, standing beside him. "We need to see where we are." Nodded. He grabbed a metal rod from the debris. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was something, and walked to the emergency hatch. With a hard push, it fell open, and strange light flooded in. He stepped onto another world. The first thing he noticed was the sky. It wasn't blue. It was a soft purple like lavender flowers, and there were 2 suns hanging in it. One was larger and orange. The other was smaller and almost pink. The light they cast made everything look like a dream. The second thing he noticed was the plants. They weren't green. They were purple and blue and silver, with leaves shaped like nothing on Earth. Some of them moved slowly, even though there was no wind. Walked past him in a daze, her eyes wide with wonder. For a botanist, this was paradise and nightmare mixed together. The third thing he noticed was how light he felt. Gravity here was weaker than Earth's. His steps felt bouncy, like walking on the moon. "The air is sweet," said, taking careful breaths. "It smells like honey and flowers." Was less impressed. "Sweet air doesn't help us survive. We need water, food, shelter. Our ship is broken metal now." He was right, pushed down his wonder and focused on survival. They had crashed near a forest of tall, twisted trees with bark that shimmered like metal. A stream ran nearby. They would need to test if the water was safe. The temperature was warm but comfortable. "We make camp here," announced. "Use what we can from the ship. Keep treating the wounded. Study the plants, figure out what might be safe to eat. See if any communication equipment survived. Everyone else start building shelter." They worked through the rest of the day. By the time the 2 suns began to set, one after the other, creating a sunset that shifted from orange to pink to deep purple. They had created a basic camp. It wasn't much. Just pieces of the ship arranged into walls with emergency blankets stretched overhead. But it was something. That first night, nobody slept well. Sat at the edge of camp, watching the darkness. The forest was full of strange sounds, clicks and hums, and something that sounded almost like singing. 2 moons hung in the sky, both pale blue, casting ghostly light over everything. And then he saw them. Eyes, glowing eyes in the tree line watching the camp, not one pair, dozens. They were soft green like fireflies, but they didn't move. They just watched. His blood ran cold. He slowly reached for his metal rod. Behind him had noticed too and was quietly waking the others. For hours they watched the watchers. Nobody attacked. Nobody moved. By the time the suns rose again, the eyes were gone. "Something lives here," whispered, exhaustion heavy in her voice. Something intelligent added, "They were studying us." Looked at his small, tired, scared crew. 12 humans on an alien world with no way home, being watched by creatures they couldn't see. But they were alive. That was enough for now. "Whatever they are," he said, standing tall despite his fear, "they'll learn that humans don't die easily." He didn't know it yet, but the watchers in the forest were thinking the same thing about them. For 6 nights the eyes watched them. Every sunset they appeared in the tree line. Every sunrise they vanished. The crew grew nervous. Some wanted to hide, some wanted to attack first, but told everyone to wait. "They haven't hurt us," he reasoned. "Maybe they're scared too." On the 7th day, the watchers finally showed themselves. Was helping repair a small radio when the forest went silent. All the clicking and humming sounds stopped at once. He looked up and felt his heart freeze. They walked out of the trees like ghosts, tall, much taller than humans. Their bodies were thin and long, with arms that reached almost to their knees. Their skin was shifting between light and dark like clouds moving across the sky. They had no hair. Their faces were flat with large dark eyes that seemed to hold endless depth. They wore simple clothing made from woven plant material. There were 12 of them, the same number as the humans. "Nobody move," whispered, his hand slowly reaching for a knife. "Nobody do anything stupid." The creatures stopped about 10 meters away from the camp. They didn't speak. Instead, their skin began to glow. Soft lights pulsed across their bodies, blue, green, white, in patterns that seemed meaningful. A low humming sound filled the air, too deep to be comfortable. Grabbed her recording device with shaking hands. "They're communicating," she breathed. "The lights, the sounds, it's a language." Stepped forward slowly, her hands raised to show she held nothing. The creatures watched her with those dark, deep eyes. One of them, the tallest, perhaps a leader, pulsed brighter and made a sound like a whale song. "I don't understand," said softly, knowing they couldn't understand her either. "But we don't want to fight." The creatures studied her for a long moment. Then slowly, the tall one reached into a bag at its side and pulled out something. It was a fruit, round and golden, about the size of an apple. The creature placed it on the ground, stepped back and waited. "An offering, food, peace." Picked up the fruit. She looked at it, then at the creatures, then back at the crew. "They're feeding us. They're trying to help." Over the next few days, communication was painfully slow. Worked day and night, recording every light pattern and every sound. She began to understand simple things. A fast pulse of blue meant question. A slow green glow meant peace. A red flash meant danger or warning. The creatures called themselves something that sounded like a low hum followed by a whistle. It too, seemed to accept this name. They were fascinated by the humans. Everything about them caused wonder. When hammered metal to repair a wall, they watched in amazement. When sneezed, they jumped back in surprise. When laughed at a joke, all 12 froze completely, their lights flickering in confusion. "They've never heard laughter before," explained, studying her recordings. "Their species doesn't make sounds like that. To them, we're incredibly loud and incredibly fast. They think we move like lightning. Smiled at this. Lightning people, I like that. They began bringing more gifts, fruits and vegetables that carefully tested before anyone ate, cooked meat from animals the humans hadn't seen, clean water in strange containers. In return, gave them small things, a mirror, a flashlight, a music player. They were especially amazed by music. They would sit for hours, listening to old Korean songs, their skin pulsing in rhythm. But something was wrong. Noticed it first, the way they always looked toward the ground, the way their lights flickered with anxiety when night came, the way they built their shelters high in the trees, never on the ground. They were afraid, not of the humans, of something else. Ask them, told one evening. Ask them what they're scared of. Tried, using light signals she had learned, she formed a question. The tall they had started calling him watched her carefully. Then his skin went completely dark. No lights, no color. The other did the same. In the sudden darkness, bent down and drew in the dirt with his long finger. He drew the ground. Below the ground he drew shapes, many shapes. They had too many legs, too many mouths. They were coming up from below. Then he drew figures, running, falling, dying. When he finished, he looked at with those deep, dark eyes, and she saw something she recognized. Terror. Something lives underground, reported to the crew that night, her voice shaking. Something that hunts something they can't fight. They just run and hide and hope it doesn't find them. Frowned, and they're worried it will find us. That's why they watched us for so long. They were waiting to see if we would attract these things. Our loud machines, realized. Our heavy footsteps, we've been making so much noise. Looked at the camp in the distance, the glow of their lights soft in the night. They had been kind. They had fed the humans, tried to communicate, offered peace, and now understood why. They were lonely. They were dying. They had watched strange creatures fall from the sky and thought maybe, just maybe, these loud lightning people could help. But help with what? Fighting monsters they couldn't even see. Didn't have an answer, not yet. But as he watched the lights flicker with fear, he made a silent promise. These people had shown humans kindness. Whatever was coming, the humans would not run. They would find another way. The ground shook on the 15th day. Was eating breakfast when he felt it, a deep rumble that traveled up through his feet and into his bones. They felt it too. Their lights flashed red, panic red, danger red. Ran to the human camp faster than had ever seen him move. His lights pulsed frantically, and the humming sound he made was high and desperate. Didn't need to translate. The message was clear. They are coming. Everyone to the ship, shouted. Get weapons, get tools, get anything that can fight. The crew moved fast, grabbed his medical kit and a welding torch, picked up a metal pole and a bag of chemical samples, strapped a flashlight to her head and pulled out the largest knife she could find. Others grabbed pipes, hammers, broken pieces of metal, anything. They were already running. Their long legs carried them toward the tall trees where they built their homes. They climbed fast, desperate to get off the ground, but noticed something terrible. Some of them were too slow. The young ones, the old ones, they couldn't climb fast enough. We should run too, one of the crew members said, his voice breaking with fear. We should hide like them. Watched the climbing. He thought about drawing the creatures from below, the dying, the endless cycle of fear and death. These people had never fought back. They had only run. For generations, running was all they knew. But humans were different. No, said, his voice was calm even though his heart was racing. We stand. The ground cracked open about 50 meters from the camp. Dirt and rocks flew into the air, and then they came. The hollow ones. They were nightmares made real. Their bodies were pale and slimy like creatures that had never seen the sun. They had no eyes, just smooth skin where eyes should be. But they had mouths. Many mouths all over their bodies, filled with teeth as thin and sharp as needles. They had too many legs, maybe 8 or 10, and they moved with horrible speed. They were the size of large dogs, but there were so many of them. 20, 30. More kept coming from the hole in the ground. They screamed. It was the first time I'd heard them make a sound like that, pure terror, breaking through their usually quiet nature. Some of them fell from the trees. Others froze, their lights going dark. "Form a line," ordered, "protect the ship." The crew formed up. 12 humans against a tide of monsters. It was insane. It was suicide, but nobody ran. The first hollow one reached them in seconds. It leaped at, its many mouths open wide, swung his welding torch like a weapon, and the blue flame hit the creature's face. It screamed, a horrible, high sound, and fell back, burning. Fire, they hated fire. "Burn them," shouted. "Use anything that makes flame." The crew adapted fast. Lighters, torches, anything that could make fire became a weapon. Grabbed fuel from the damaged ship and threw it at approaching creatures, then set them ablaze. The smell was awful, like rotting meat and burning plastic mixed together. But there were too many. For every one they burned, 3 more came. The line was breaking. Was fighting near the back when she noticed something. One of her chemical samples had fallen open, spilling on the ground. The hollow ones near it were acting strange, shaking their heads, backing away, moving in confused circles. "Wait," she shouted. "The frequency, they hunt by sound, by vibration. I have a sample that produces." She didn't have time to explain. She grabbed the container and threw it into the middle of the creatures. The chemical hit the ground and began producing a high-pitched sound, too quiet for humans to hear, but clearly agonizing for the hollow ones. They twisted and writhed, their many legs kicking wildly. "The ship has speakers," realized. "I can broadcast that frequency." Fought off a creature trying to bite his leg. Do it now. Ran to the wrecked ship while the others bought her time. The battle was chaos. Took a bite on his arm but kept fighting. Another crew member was knocked down and had to be dragged back by, blood mixed with alien soil. Then the speakers crackled to life. A sound filled the air, barely audible to human ears, but to the hollow ones it was devastation. They stopped attacking. They screamed. They clawed at their own heads. One by one they turned and fled back to the hole in the ground, desperate to escape the noise. Within minutes, they were gone. The ground sealed behind them as if they had never been there. Silence fell over the battlefield. The humans stood panting, bleeding, exhausted. They looked at each other in disbelief. They had fought monsters and won. Slowly, they climbed down from the trees. They approached the human camp with wide eyes and flickering lights. They looked at the burned ground, the scattered creature remains, the wounded but standing humans. No one had ever fought the hollow ones. No one had ever survived a direct attack, let alone driven them away. Walked up to. The tall looked at this small, strange, incredibly loud creature covered in dirt and blood. Then slowly, skin began to glow. Not red for danger, not blue for question. Gold, bright, beautiful gold. Gasped, "That's a color I've never seen them use. I don't know what it means." But understood, some things didn't need translation. It meant respect, it meant hope. It meant maybe, just maybe, the running could finally stop. Word traveled fast among the. Within days of the battle, new groups began arriving at the human camp. They came from far away. Some had walked for 3 days across strange forests and silver mountains. They came in groups of 10, 20, 50. Old ones with skin that had faded to pale white. Young ones whose lights flickered with curiosity. All of them wanted to see the creatures who had done the impossible. The creatures who fought the hollow ones and won. Watched them arrive with mixed feelings. Pride, yes, but also worry. His crew was small and tired. They couldn't protect everyone. They couldn't fight another battle like that, not yet. But they didn't come asking for protection. They came offering help. They brought tools made from strange metals the humans had never seen. They brought medicine made from plants that grew only in distant valleys. They brought food, blankets, building materials. Most importantly, they brought knowledge of the land, the seasons, the safe places, and the dangerous ones. "They're treating us like heroes," said one evening, watching a group of young try to imitate human walking. Their long legs made it look funny. They've never seen anyone fight back before. To them, we're miracles. Shook her head. "We're not miracles, we just refuse to give up." "Maybe," replied thoughtfully, "that's what miracles look like to them." The work of building began. Engineers, their word for it was a complicated hum that translated as Shaper's Joints Team. They were amazed by human technology but also had incredible skills of their own. They could shape wood without cutting it, convincing the trees to grow into useful forms over time. They could weave plant fibers into material stronger than steel. They could read the ground and know where water flowed deep below. Together they started constructing something new, not a human camp, not a village, something in between. Despite his injured arm, worked with healers. Their medicine was strange. Most of it involved lights and sounds rather than pills or bandages. But it worked. They learned from each other, taught them about cleaning wounds and stopping blood loss. They taught him about plants that could heal broken bones in half the normal time. "Your bodies are amazing," a healer told him through translation. "So much damage and yet you keep moving, keep fighting. Our people would have given up long ago." Smiled at this. "Humans are stubborn. It's our best quality and our worst." One afternoon, an old approached the camp. Her skin had faded to almost white and her lights were dim with age. Through, she asked to speak with. When he came, she studied him with ancient, knowing eyes. "I have seen 90 cycles of the twin suns," she said. "I remember when the Hollow Ones destroyed my first home. I was young then. I ran like everyone runs. My parents did not make it." Listened quietly, feeling the weight of her words. "All my life I believed running was the only way, that fighting was impossible, that we would always be prey and the Hollow Ones would always be hunters." She paused, her lights flickering softly. "Then you fell from the sky." She reached out and touched his hand. The first time I had made direct contact with a human. Her skin was cool and smooth, and her lights pulsed warm gold where they touched. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you fight for each other so fiercely? You could have run, you could have hidden. Some of your people were hurt protecting others. Why?" Thought about this question carefully. He thought about his crew. He thought about the fear they had all felt. He thought about the moment he decided to stand instead of run. "Because we're not alone," he finally said. "As long as there's someone beside you, you have something worth fighting for. That's what being human means. We don't just survive for ourselves. We survive for each other." The old was quiet for a long time. Her lights pulsed slowly, colors shifting in ways couldn't read. Finally, she spoke again. "Then perhaps we can learn to be a little human too." From that day forward, the alliance grew stronger. Scouts taught humans how to read the signs of coming Hollow One attacks, the way certain plants curled, the way animals went silent, the deep vibration in the ground that came hours before an emergence. Humans taught how to fight, how to use fire, how to set traps, how to stand together instead of running apart. Young practiced with metal rods, clumsily copying human fighting moves. Human crew members learned to climb trees just in case running became the smarter choice. The two species trained together, ate together, built together. Started a garden where earth seeds grew beside alien plants. The results were strange and beautiful, vegetables that glowed faintly, fruits that tasted like nothing on earth but were delicious anyway. She worked with farmers, sharing knowledge, learning their techniques. By the 25th day, the combined camp had grown into something that looked like a real settlement. There were shelters strong enough to survive storms. There were storage areas filled with food and medicine. There were weapon stations placed around the perimeter, ready for the next attack. And there were people, human and who no longer saw each other as strangers. One evening, watched teaching a group of young how to sing. Their attempt was terrible. Voices weren't made for human songs, but everyone was laughing. Even in their own way, made sounds that seemed like joy. We fell from the sky with nothing thought. Broken ship, no way home, no idea where we were, and now look at us. Now they were something new, something that had never existed before. They were becoming a family. On the 28th day, the communication array finally worked. Had been repairing it for weeks, stealing moments between battles and building and learning to live on this strange world. Now, standing in the wreckage of what used to be the ship's control room, he watched the small screen flicker to life. A connection, weak but real. His hands shook as he typed in the emergency code. The signal would take time to reach anyone, weeks, maybe months, and rescue would take even longer. The nearest human colony was years away at normal speed. Even if they sent the fastest ship available, it could be a very long time before anyone came. But the signal was sent. Earth would know they were alive. Found him sitting alone in the control room an hour later. The screen still glowed with the confirmation message. Signal transmitted. "You did it," she said softly. "We might actually get rescued." Nodded, but he didn't smile. Might, someday, could be years. "Are you okay?" He looked at her, then looked out the broken window at the world beyond. The twin suns were setting, painting the purple sky in shades of orange and pink. In the distance, he could see the settlement, human shelters mixed with tree homes, smoke rising from cooking fires, people moving and working and living together. "I don't know how I feel," he admitted. "For weeks, all I thought about was survival, getting rescued, going home, but now." Sat down beside him. "Now it feels like we already are home." He didn't answer, he didn't have to. The next 2 days were busy. News of the signal spread through the crew, bringing joy and tears and long conversations about families left behind on Earth. What would they say when rescue came? What would they do? Would things ever be normal again? But they noticed the change in their human friends. They saw the sadness mixed with happiness, the looking up at the sky with longing, and they understood. These lightning people had fallen from somewhere else. Someday, they might return to that somewhere else. On the morning of the 30th day, came to with a group of elders. Their lights pulsed with colors had come to recognize, blue for questions, gold for respect and something new. A soft purple that seemed to mean hope. Through, they made a proposal. "We know you may leave someday," said. "We know your home is far away, but we ask you stay with us at least for now, build with us, teach us. Let us teach you. Whatever time you have here, spend it as family." Looked at his crew. His arm, now almost fully healed, nodded firmly, smiled through tears, was already glowing with excitement. One by one, every crew member gave their answer without words. "Yes. We'll stay," told. "For as long as we're here, we'll stay, and we'll build something amazing together." Lights flashed bright gold, brighter than had ever seen. The other joined in, creating a display of color that lit up the morning like fireworks. It was beautiful. It was celebration. It was joy. That afternoon, they held a ceremony. It wasn't human tradition or tradition. It was something new, something created just for them. The humans stood in a circle with the holding hands and touching shoulders. Translated as spoke ancient words that they used to welcome new members into their families. Then spoke in Korean, words of friendship and promise, words his grandmother had taught him long ago. 2 species, 2 languages, 1 family. As the ceremony ended and the twin sons began their slow descent, climbed a nearby hill. He wanted to see everything, the settlement they had built, the forest where danger still lurked, the sky where rescue might someday come. The view was incredible. Below him, and humans worked side by side. Young played a clumsy game of soccer with crew members, their long legs making for terrible kicks but lots of laughter. His garden sparkled with growing plants. Was teaching basic defense moves to a group of eager scouts. was surrounded by elders, probably learning new words, new stories, new pieces of this world's history. A rescue ship might come someday, maybe next year, maybe in 10 years, maybe never, found that the uncertainty didn't scare him anymore. Because home wasn't just a place. Home wasn't Earth or Korea or any specific point on any map. Home was people. Home was belonging. Home was having something worth protecting and someone worth protecting it with. Park had fallen from the sky with nothing but a broken ship and a terrified crew. 1 month later, he had a family that stretched across species. He had a purpose that stretched into the future. He had a world that was strange and dangerous and beautiful. He had a home. As the pink sun set below the horizon and the orange sun followed slowly after, smiled. The blue moons were rising, casting their ghostly light over a world that no longer felt alien. Somewhere in the distance, I was trying to sing a Korean song, and the sound was so bad that everyone was laughing. The universe was vast and strange, filled with worlds that made no sense and creatures that understanding. But wherever humans went, they carried something with them. Stubbornness, hope, the unshakable belief that no night was too dark, no enemy too strong, no world too strange. They carried each other. And sometimes that was enough. 1 month ago, Park was an engineer on a research vessel, dreaming of distant stars. Now he was standing on those stars, watching 2 species become one family. He took a deep breath of sweet alien air. He was home.